Hi, I'm Christina and this is a book review of Soldier Sailor by Claire Kilroy. So this is the second book that I've read from the Women's Prize of Fiction Longlist this year. This is a literary fiction novel and it was published in 2023. We meet the main character as she is a new mother. She is an unnamed woman, but she's sometimes referred to as Soldier, and her baby she refers to sometimes as Sailor as a term of endearment. So it's written in a stream of consciousness style. It's all from her perspective. We don't see anybody else's perspective in this book at all. And I have given this one 4 stars. Now, I don't want to say that I enjoyed this one because enjoy isn't the right word. It was at times like I endured this book. It was so difficult to read, so hard to read at times because the subject matter is so tough. She's going through so much and her pain and everything she's struggling with is so raw and so visceral that it really impacted me emotionally, so much so that when I was reading this book, I wasn't enjoying it. It was making me feel just scared and so sorry for her, and just it was at times a really harrowing read because she really does struggle with early motherhood and she has so little support, and you start to see the crumbling of her marriage as well. And it's just, I think, a very real perspective on early motherhood for some people. Obviously, this is one person's experience, and at times I think it feels kind of very autobiographical in the sense that it kind of feels like she's referring back to things that she's experienced herself. It feels so real, like I'm actually seeing an actual woman going through all of these things in real life. And I just think that's what makes it such a great book. So no, I didn't enjoy I didn't enjoy this book, to be honest. I was sitting there sometimes actively disliking it, but I know that it's a very good book because it made me feel those things. And when we see the interactions with her husband and how little support she has, she doesn't particularly have any family or friends who can support her. And her husband in this story is quite absent from the whole early part of raising his child, and there's definitely a lot of times when we can all see that she is struggling and yet he doesn't seem to be offering her the support and the help that she needs, and nobody else is offering her that support and help that she needs either, and she's just struggling by herself and nobody is really responding to that in a way that they could or they should. And yeah, I found it very moving, and seeing everything that she goes through. And there's some really dark scenes in this as well that I will just say, if perhaps this would be sensitive to you, perhaps don't read it. I don't know how it would feel if you are a very new mother to read something like this. I don't know if it would make you feel bad or whether it would be comforting to know that someone else is struggling too. I don't know. Obviously, you would have to decide for yourself what you think about what this subject matter would feel like for you. But I think I would definitely stress caution in the sense that I found it incredibly difficult to read, and I don't have children, and I don't know how it would feel if you do have a very small child or a baby. I'm not sure how it might affect you. I don't know if it would feel too real and too raw, or if it would, but obviously you will know for yourself. But I do think it was a very good book in the sense that it felt genuinely so real. I've read a few books that talk about early motherhood, but none have been quite so depressing and monotonous and tedious and are just overwhelming as this one would be, I would say. I think it's probably a very realistic expectation and representation of early motherhood, especially with someone who doesn't have a lot of physical support or emotional support or all the other types of support you would hope she would have. And yeah, really difficult to read at times, really tough, and like I say, some really dark scenes. She goes to some quite dark places and it is difficult to read about, but at the same time it's also quietly quite funny, and some quite dark humour in this as well. But there's times when she really made me smile and she almost made me laugh. I think it's quite a funny book in the sense that she can be in some very dark places and she will make quite witty remarks, maybe that feel quite realistic as well. So I will read some of the quotes out to you that I particularly enjoyed. But yeah, it was a really good book, and I don't think I've read anything quite like this, in the sense that I've read a few books about early motherhood and parenthood. This one's definitely more from the mother's perspective, because obviously we don't ever hear the father's perspective at all, and he isn't portrayed well in this story. I will say he's probably what you would call quite an absent father. Not in the literal sense, they are together, they are a married couple, but in the way in which they raise the child, it's very much dependent on her, and apart from financially, he isn't providing much support apart from financial support. So yeah, it was good, and also really tough to read. I will read you some of those quotes because honestly it's written incredibly well. I really liked the way it was written. She just made me, even though I never got to a point in this book that I just wanted to put it down and genuinely never pick it up again, because I didn't want to see how bad it could get for her. I was like, there was parts I was like, can it get worse? I don't know if I want to keep reading this, because not because it was a bad book, because it was so tough. I'm glad that I kept reading it because it is a very good book and it is incredibly well written. So let me share some of those quotes with you. So the first quote I have to share with you is on page 52, and just to set the scene, she's in a supermarket with her baby, just the two of them doing the food shop, and for a moment she lost him, but they have now been reunited. I moved through the aisles as briskly as I was able, which wasn't very briskly, which wasn't very able. The shopping list which had been in my hand before I lost you was nowhere to be found. Bouncy, bouncy bog roll, boing, I exclaimed hopefully, trying to talk you down from the same ledge on which I found myself. Another toddler in a trolley stared you down as his mother pushed him past. You stared coldly back. The child's face was a smeared 5 o'clock shadow of brown. In his fist was a chocolate cookie. Without taking his eyes off you, he returned the cookie to his mouth, took another bite and chewed slowly. Deliberately, malevolently, I want to say. You turned to me and howled for the cookie, and I judged the child's mother. Yes, I dealt her a sound judging for making life harder for the good mothers who provided healthy snacks, the ones who mislaid their children in supermarkets. I just think the way she writes is so witty, and just the interaction with this baby and another baby, and just the way she kind of narrated the story, I thought that was a really good quote. So the next quote I have to share is on page 206, and this one is about love. In love, there is always loss, sailor. There is no way around this that I can find. There will be a last look. That last look may come sooner than you think. One of us will be left behind. These are the things you accept when you accept love into your life. I just thought that was such a beautiful phrase, and just, I love the way that she constructs a sentence. I think she is a really beautiful writer. I really like the way in which she writes, and that really hit me. That little part when I was reading this book, I thought I have to make a note of that one. It's such a good quote. So the last quote I have to share with you is on page 227. I was born with you. This was news to me. A baby girl is born with all her eggs in her ovaries. How about that? A part of you was always a part of me. I don't want to read too much into this staggering fact, but still. Now, I actually already knew that fact, but I thought, yeah, I really like the way she included it, and I wanted to share that one just in case anyone didn't know that fact, because when I first learned that, I found it really interesting and kind of astounding, actually, and yeah. I just thought I wanted to share that one too. So those are my thoughts on Soldier Sailor. I do think this is a very good book, and I would definitely recommend that you read it, as long as you think this is something that you are able to read, of course, because like I said, it is a very difficult book to read at times. Now, looking at this book in comparison to the other books that I've read from the Women's Prize for Fiction long list so far, the only one I've read is The 8 Lives of a Century Old Trickster. I would say that I think I like that one just a little bit more. So I have given them both 4 stars, and I like them for different reasons, of course. I do have a full book review on The 8 Lives of a Century Old Trickster, so I will link that down below just in case you'd like to hear my full thoughts on it. But out of the 2 of them so far, I do think that one has the edge for me, just because I learned so much about that period of time. It's set in North Korea and South Korea, and I found it so interesting, and I learned so much, and I just think it was a really good book. So I think for me, this one is not quite as good, but obviously I did enjoy it. So thank you so much for watching. If you have read this book, I would love to know your thoughts down in the comments below. If you like the video, please do like it. And if you'd like to hear more of me talking about books, please do subscribe, and I will be reading more books from the Women's Prize for Fiction long list. All right, I'll see you in my next one. Bye.